What if I told you one of the most powerful lessons in the Quran doesn't come from a prophet, a king, or even a human being, but from a dog? Yes, a dog, a creature so loyal, so faithful, that Allah Himself mentioned it in His eternal book, not once, but with detail, posture, and purpose. This wasn't an ordinary animal. It didn't speak. It didn't perform miracles. It didn't lead an army. But it did something far greater. It stayed loyal to the righteous when the world turned against them. In a time when even humans abandoned truth, this dog followed the believers into exile, laid at the mouth of a cave and guarded them as they slept, not for hours, not for days, but for over 3 centuries. Why would Allah mention a dog in a holy story? Because loyalty, real, pure, quiet loyalty, is beloved to the divine. This is not just a story of a dog. It's a story of what truly matters in the eyes of Allah. And trust me, you'll never look at loyalty the same way again. In a time long forgotten, beyond the reach of modern maps and history books, a kingdom stood tall with pride, ruled by a tyrant who saw himself as a god. His authority knew no mercy. His law was idol worship, and any who rejected it were hunted like criminals. It was during this age of darkness that a group of young men, youths with hearts awakened by divine truth, stood up against the tide. They didn't have armies, they didn't have power, and they certainly didn't have protection. What they did have was unwavering faith. These young believers refused to bow down to false gods. They chose instead to worship Allah alone, even when it meant risking their lives. The ruler issued threats. Families abandoned them. Society mocked and isolated them. But their hearts were firm. When the pressure became unbearable, they left their homes, their families, their safety, everything, all for the sake of protecting their faith. They became fugitives, not for committing a crime, but for daring to believe in one God. They traveled through rough terrain, hidden paths, and dangerous valleys, searching for a place where they could practice their belief in peace. Then, somewhere along their journey, they found a cave, dark, mysterious, and open-mouthed like a sleeping giant. It wasn't luxury, but it was shelter, and most importantly, it was freedom. But they weren't alone on this sacred journey. Trailing quietly behind them was a creature, an animal many would see as lowly or impure. A dog, its fur dusty from the road, its tongue hanging, panting in the sun, yet its eyes alert, filled with something deeper than instinct. This wasn't a trained guardian or a noble breed. It was just a dog, but a dog with a heart full of loyalty. It had chosen to walk beside the righteous, not for food, not for shelter, but out of a bond that defied explanation. The Quran doesn't tell us the name of this dog. It doesn't tell us its breed, color, or size. But Allah, in His infinite wisdom, chose to include this dog in the story of the Ashab Al-Kahf. That fact alone is enough to shake the hearts of those who understand the weight of being mentioned in the eternal words of Allah. In Surah Al-Kahf, verse 18, Allah describes the companions lying in the cave, preserved in a miraculous state of sleep. He says, "And you would have thought them awake while they were asleep, and we turned them to the right and to the left while their dog stretched his forelegs at the entrance." The image is clear. The dog didn't just follow them. It took its place like a silent sentinel, guarding the entrance, paws outstretched, as if declaring to the world, "You shall not harm them while I live." Imagine the symbolism. A dog, an animal many would consider unworthy of divine mention, was honored by Allah as the faithful companion of these blessed youth. Not only that, but the Quran speaks of the dog's position, his posture, and his role. It wasn't merely a background character. It was part of the miracle. And so, the dog remained, resting at the mouth of the cave, while inside the young men surrendered their souls to Allah, not in death, but in a divinely commanded sleep, a slumber so deep and prolonged it would last not days, not months, but over 3 centuries. For 309 years, The companions of the cave lay in a state of suspended time. Their bodies did not decay. Their hearts did not stop. Their sleep was not natural, it was miraculous. And at the cave's threshold, the dog lay in stillness too, as if Allah preserved it in a state of divine stillness, neither dead nor restless, just there, present, watching. A humble animal, transformed into an eternal guard. The sun, in obedience to Allah's command, changed its angle so it would not strike their bodies directly. It would rise and shift in a way that maintained their preservation. Inside the cave, the temperature, light, and air were regulated by divine will. Not a single detail was left to chance. Allah designed everything perfectly, including the dog's position at the cave's entrance. It served as both a barrier and a signal, a creature of loyalty becoming part of a divine system of protection. Can you imagine? Outside the cave, generations passed, empires fell, new languages were spoken, new kings rose. But inside, silence, peace, and a dog who never moved, never wandered, never betrayed. This animal, incapable of speech, incapable of worship the way humans do, was honored because it stayed close to the righteous, because it followed truth, because it chose company over comfort. It didn't demand reward. It didn't ask for praise. Its loyalty was pure, silent, and unwavering. Here's where the lesson becomes personal. If a dog without intellect, without knowledge, without books or rituals, could earn mention in the Quran because of its loyalty to righteous companions, what about us? What does it say about the company we keep, about the loyalty we show to those who call us to Allah? This dog wasn't honored because of bloodline, speech, or skill. It was honored because it stayed close to people of faith. That's it. That's all it did, and that was enough for Allah to elevate it forever. How many people today chase status, fame, or recognition? How many abandon sincerity for worldly applause? And yet, here is a dog, completely unknown to the world, whose name we don't even know, yet we recite its story every Friday when we read Surah Al-Kahf. Millions of Muslims across centuries unknowingly mention this animal again and again, because Allah chose to write it into His book. The scholars reflect deeply on this. If an animal can be elevated through loyalty and companionship, what about a human being who serves the righteous? What about someone who helps the people of knowledge, or supports a dawah movement, or simply shows love for the friends of Allah? There's a principle in Islam. Al-maru ma'a man ahaba. A person will be with those whom they love. This dog loved the righteous. It followed them. It protected them. And in return, Allah granted it a legacy that transcended time. Even more stunning is that some early scholars said, if Allah mentioned this dog in the Quran because of its loyalty to righteous men, what would He give to the human who serves the righteous with sincerity? But the one thought is enough to humble the heart and uplift the soul. Outside the cave, the world continued to spin. Rulers died. Empires rose and fell. Tongues changed. The land shifted. But inside, the miracle endured. The young men slept untouched by time, suspended in the mercy of Allah. And at the mouth of the cave the dog remained, its limbs outstretched, its gaze invisible to mankind, yet eternally engraved into the memory of the heavens. When we read the Quran and arrive at the verse about this dog, it's not just a passing mention. It's deliberate, it's pointed, and it's sacred. Allah did not just want us to remember the youth who stood for truth. He wanted us to remember everything around them, the place, the light, the sleep, and yes, the dog, because every detail in the Quran carries purpose. There are no extras, no background fillers. Everything is revelation. Everything is a sign. The dog's posture is described in the verse, not because Allah wants to give us a visual for the sake of drama, but because even the stillness of this creature is a sign of something deeper. Its stretched out forelegs show alertness, readiness, vigilance. Like a soldier at post, It didn't curl up and doze off. It didn't wander away once the cave was found. It took its place as if by command, instinctively, understanding that its role had begun. It wasn't a dog of miracles. It didn't speak like the ant in the time of Prophet Sulaiman, nor carry messages like the hoopoe bird. It didn't become a fish that swallowed a prophet or an army of birds that dropped stones from the sky. No, this dog had no supernatural powers, but it had one trait that made it deserving of eternal remembrance: loyalty. In an age of fleeting commitment, where people switch allegiances for gain, where promises are broken, and companionship is conditional, this dog stands as a silent sermon. Its loyalty wasn't loud. It wasn't transactional. It followed the youth when they were nobodies, persecuted, homeless, abandoned. It didn't wait to see if they'd become famous. It didn't stay back because the road was uncertain. It walked with them into exile, and when they stopped, it stayed, and when they slept, it stood guard. Even more profound is this truth: the dog was not a prophet, not a scholar, not even a human being. Yet Allah saw it, Allah preserved it, Allah recorded it, not because of what it knew, but because of what it did. And that alone teaches us something weighty. Allah values action, sincerity, and the quiet loyalty of the soul more than the appearance or the label. The Quran honors this creature, not because it taught others or led a revolution, but because it kept company with the righteous. Just being in the proximity of goodness with sincerity was enough. And that's a message we must internalize. Sometimes you don't have to be the scholar giving the lecture or the leader on the stage. Sometimes you're the one behind the scenes holding the camera, sweeping the mosque, setting the microphone, defending the one who speaks truth. And that quiet role, that humble loyalty, if done with sincerity, can write your name where it matters most, in the record of Allah. Let us pause and reflect. How many people today find themselves wondering if their efforts are seen, if their love for righteousness, their protection of believers, their silent sacrifices matter? And yet, a dog, whose name we don't even know, is spoken of on the tongues of billions, all because it stayed beside the people of faith. And then came the awakening. After over 3 centuries, by the will of Allah, the youths opened their eyes. They sat up. They thought only a day or part of a day had passed. Their bodies were unharmed, their clothes untouched by decay. Time had kissed them, but never consumed them. One of them went down into the town to buy food, still unaware of how long they had slept, but the coins in his hand betrayed their haya. They were ancient, obsolete. The people stared. Whispers spread. Who was this man? He spoke like them, but dressed like a memory. And his coin, it came from a king long dead. The townspeople gathered. The truth unraveled. The legend of the cave, once myth, now stood before them in flesh and blood. The believers had returned, and with them came the living sign of Allah's power to preserve, to protect, and to perform miracles beyond understanding. But what of the dog? The Quran does not tell us what happened to it after the awakening, and perhaps that silence is the most powerful message, because its role had already been fulfilled. Its loyalty was already recorded, its reward already sealed. There's a wisdom in not knowing everything, because what we do know is more than enough. The dog had served a divine purpose. It had stood by the righteous. It had shared in their miracle. And even when its name was forgotten by man, it was immortalized by the words of the Most Merciful. The scholars of Islam often highlight the lesson of companionship from this story. The dog, through nothing but loyalty, earned a place in divine scripture. That means who we associate with, who we love, who we defend, who we follow, can shape our legacy. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said a person is upon the religion of his close friend, so let one of you look at whom he takes as a close friend. Imagine that your destiny may depend not just on your deeds, but on your company. That is why the Quran shows us a dog, not preaching, not teaching, not commanding, but simply being with the righteous, and being sincere in that companionship. It's a powerful message, one that humbles the arrogant and uplifts the unknown. Today, in every corner of the Muslim world, millions read Surah Al-Kahf every Friday, as the Prophet encouraged, and each time these verses are read, that dog is remembered. A dog whose name we don't know. A dog whose voice we never heard. A dog that never sought fame, yet it achieved what many humans dream of, eternal remembrance in the Book of Allah. And this remembrance wasn't through heroic feats, but through unshakable loyalty. It's as if Allah is telling us, you may think you are small, you may believe you're unnoticed, but if your heart is loyal, your soul sincere, and your love for the righteous real, then I see you, and I will honor you in ways the world cannot imagine. This isn't just the story of some ancient sleepers and their animal companion. This is a story that speaks to every servant of Allah who wonders if their quiet service is known. To every believer who chooses to stand by truth, even when it's unpopular. To every soul who remains steadfast in love and loyalty, not for gain, but for faith. The dog of Ashab Al-Kahf was not just a protector of a cave, it became a protector of a legacy, a witness to divine mercy, a sign from Allah. And in that still figure at the cave's mouth, we find more than a companion, we find a symbol of loyalty beyond time. And so, dear brothers and sisters, we've journeyed through the cave, walked beside the righteous youth, and stood quietly with their loyal companion, the dog whose silent devotion echoed across centuries. It's amazing, isn't it? How even the quietest, most overlooked soul can become a timeless sign in the Book of Allah. This story reminds us, it's not about titles or recognition, it's about sincerity, loyalty, and the company we keep. If a nameless dog can be honored in the Quran, what then of you when you walk the path of truth with love in your heart and loyalty to Allah in your soul? Thank you for walking this journey with me. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a reminder of how much Allah values sincerity, no matter where it comes from. Until next time, stay humble, stay sincere, and always stay close to the people of light.